Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Programming the Next Steps. So last we left off, we had finished testing out our initial domain rate setting. So if we go back and look at our tickets, you can see we have tentatively finished this with very basic testing, although we haven't written any formal code tests so far. So if we go to our project, go to our planning board, go and add a column in test, and this is just put it in preset none. So effectively this ticket is finished. It's had its basic testing, but it needs a little bit more formal testing before we can mark it as done. And if we want to go and mark down the second ticket we want to work on, is allow setting or allow hitting of external HTTP resource. So add command to, and for consistency's sake, let's see if we can't look at and keep our wording similar. So if we look at this, say command and you don't want to say hit to send request, and we'll say just to external, and this is so say to meet, if we want to look at our acceptance criteria. So this should be AC1, which is our main thing. So if we go to AC1 and command allowing the user to request send a request to fetch external HTTP resource. So this is the core part of the application where it acts as a proxy. So we're going to send a request to the application for the domain and the URL, and then it in turn is going to send the request outbound, and that request for the resource will be rate limited. So I'm going to assign myself, I'm going to put it into this project, and then we're going to also add in our behavior documentation. So for now, this is going to just be for administrative users. And spell that correctly. So we say when the user requests, for now, just put google.com. And then, so we're going to say when the user requests a resource, so the path of the domain from the domain itself. Now we'll just get the index page from google.com, and then we'll say then the rate, then the resource or the results of the request should be returned. It's very generic. When we actually go to write this in as behavior tickets in here, we'll standardize it. And eventually we're going to add a behavior library that we can run and pull in these, run the tests, and check if they're working. And for now, you're going to be in progress. That should be our next ticket. Next up, we're going to copy this text. Copy. Then just switch over here, and we're going to create a new feature file. Just so I remember, let's call it, I think, and then we're just going to paste. Right. And so that'll be our second feature we want to hit. So to implement this feature, we're going to create a new CLI module. So this will just be requests. I think there's actually a library called requests, so I don't want to name something too similar. I'm just going to call this HTTP request. Alright, so if we follow the same kind of pattern we did for the rate limit module, say we're going to take in some root, click, commands, I'm going to import click, management. Oh, no, I did spell that correctly. For sending HTTP requests. And we are going to want to pull in a controller, but for now, I'm just going to do this. So the root command is going to be HTTP. Going to be pass, and we're going to just name this HTTP. So we'll do like HTTP get, maybe post if we want to send data. For now, we'll just do get, and we're going to say domain. Domain. I'm going to take two arguments. So we're going to say send HTTP get request to URL. And if we do the domain to send to, and then path is the document path. Right, now I just need to register this. So this will be at HTTP command. This will just be get. Say now just debug domain path, and we'll just add the arguments. And I did a little bit of digging. So if you want to pass in negative numbers as arguments, I think you have to actually do something a little special for them. Because otherwise they'll always be treated as options. All right. So next, I'm going to want to add this to our list. So CLI.HTTP request. And just need to register it. CLI.HTTP request.register root. So now if you want to run roots, Python should see it wants to need to type in git. You should put in a domain and path, and it looks like it properly reads it. The other thing is we're going to want to probably specify the protocol, because there's HTTP or HTTPS. So the first thing we should probably assert is domain.starts HTTP. Right. So we want to check if it starts with HTTP or HTTPS -s colon. So we'll do actually this will be a good use of the any command. So this is any. I think we can just say domain dot starts with HTTP, domain dot starts with HTTPS, and then we'll say, we'll actually call this accepted protocol. And do you need to be a list? You might need to be a list. Yeah, I think this needs to be a list. Right. If, and I think this, yeah. If not any, or if not accepted protocol, all we need to do is say here, domain not recognized. And then we'll just do an exit. So if we try that again, so what we need to do is actually say HTTP. There we go. Because if we pass it to request, I believe it might fuss at us if we just pass in the naked host name. So next, we're going to also want to do the controller. Going to do Python file, p request. Right. So we're going to want to import source.cli.http request, or not source, controller. .http request. So then for our let's close you and pull up the controller for rate limit as our reference. So this is going to use the models. Eventually we're going to want to have a schema for requests, because what's going to happen is we're going to want to keep track of how many requests we make in a given point of time. But for now, we don't have the decision on how we're going to back up that store. If it's going to be SQL, is it going to be Redis? So for now, we're just going to say def git HTTP git domain path. And they should need to be strings. And this is going to be fetch resource. Alright, so to get started with HTTP requests, we need to actually import our library for handling HTTP requests. And I'm going to add this to our requirements. believe this is just -m pip install requests. Now should be good. Import requests. Now to do a get, what we do is r equals requests.get. And then we want to do the domain plus path. The other thing we're going to want to do is move the checking of our protocol into request itself. So if we do a source.controller.http request, then we're going to do a http get domain path. I should just move this code up. And instead of exiting, we're just going to return a value error. So we're going to raise value error. Domain protocol not recognized. E.g. HTTP. All right. So now that we have that, so we're only doing gets, and we want is to get the results. So r dot results. So now we want to get the response and return it back. So r dot response or text. And then for now, we're just going to return the results. We're not going to do any processing. So we may want to put the payload inside of a larger package, say a JSON package, to indicate the status of the results or any kind of metadata. But for now, that's all we're going to do. So now let's go test out to see if that works. Python m run http get .google.com. Oh, and of course http and that shouldn't take that long. Oh yeah, we're also going to want to print. So you can be stopped. So one is probably want to use HTTPS. Yep, just use HTTPS. And looks like we actually got some results back. So that means our initial script is functionally running. Now it's not applying any rate limits, but it is doing the request that we need. So that's going to be that for this episode. Next we're going to be looking at actually writing some tests to make sure the behavior works, and then looking at applying the rate limit behavior.